Today is a special episode. We are going to be talking to a very special guest straight from the company Antigua Winds to go over some beautiful saxophones. Stick around. Howdy everybody, my name is Andrew King. This is Alamo Music. Don't forget to visit the website alamomusic.com where we have all of these models available for purchase and for everything else you want to peruse. Today we're going to be talking about Antigua Winds alto saxophones, the almost complete line right here on the table, and I have a good friend here, Devin Pelton. Devin, nice to see you.
Good to see you, boss.
Absolutely. So, what we got here?
Well, I heard you playing through the door there. It sounded good.
Thanks, man.
Good. I could tell which instrument you were playing just by the sound.
Yeah.
And so that's something that would be good for us to kind of touch on, is some of the differences, some of the different sounds that instruments produce and what causes them to sound different than maybe a student line. Because the one you first played was kind of a little bit more shallow in sound, kind of a little bit more resistance. You had to push just a little bit more to get the response. The job of a student line instrument is immediate gratification. You want this to be a tank, because to have the investment of putting this in many cases, a 11-year-old's hand, then we want it to be very solid. So some of the things that Antigua does that is unique to the Antigua product is, even though this is post-to-body construction, in other words, these posts are soldered straight to the body. Posts are what holds up all these things called keys. So that post-to-body construction is less expensive than a less expensive way to build than on some of the others. We'll talk about ribbing and what it does. But our post-to-body construction, we take that post and where it comes in contact with the body, we enlarge it. We were one of the pioneers to start that. We enlarged that space. So if there's an impact, maybe when you started, you were maybe bumping into stuff, and when marching band, great marching band horn, because they're durable. So that larger flange on the bottom of the post gives more surface area, so it doesn't dent or bend or move around more. It's just more solid, so it lasts better, and it provides a better investment because of those things that make it more durable. When you went to the next step, it was kind of our flagship. We were one of the first to produce large bell, power bell, enlarged flange here instruments on saxophones. That started many years ago, 28 years ago, that type of production was started to be accepted. And what that does is a larger bell, enlarged bell, is for projection. You notice that you were really, the notes were just really flying out of that. And so that is because of the large bell. And also it's got a larger taper in the body of the instrument. So taper is how you get from one size to a bigger size or to a smaller size. And the taper of the tube, which picture nothing on here except just the middle part, the saxophone part. The taper, how it gets from this dimension to this dimension, and then finally this dimension, is what we call a slow taper. It gets bigger slowly. More conical, we get in the weeds here, but a more conical design is going to make for a little bit more dark, covered sound. Those out there, the musicians, understand what I mean by difference between a trumpet and a French horn. Trumpet stays the same dimension along a long path of the air, and then gets big, right? And how fast it gets big to the bell is what creates a dark or a brighter sound. Trumpet's a brighter sound than a French horn. French horn gets larger the whole distance, and how the diameter or the bore of that instrument grows. All that to say, saxophones are similar to that, although we don't say, I want a 36 taper on this bell. All of the 4240 series, big bell, big bore saxophones have the same taper. So you don't have to worry about how do you get that taper. You select your instrument based on the sound that you want. So this instrument, the sound flies right out of it. A lot of that has to do with the taper. It is a fully ribbed instrument. So just like I showed you how this was the big posts to the body, this has got an extra strip of metal all the way down the instrument. So it's much more stable. It's kind of double thick the whole length of the instrument. A couple other features that you'll notice on the 4000 series is the dual arms on the C, B, and B flat. So the bell keys have two arms, so because there's a lot of distance that they move, that gives it a lot more stability. So you notice that when you were playing in your the lower range of the instrument, how it was warm, and then it really brightened up as you pushed a little bit. Now, I didn't notice the mouthpieces. Did you do all three with the same mouthpiece?
Yeah. So
what is your gear? What's your setup?
What I'm playing is a New York Meyer Vintage 7 with just a ZZ3. Van Doren, nice jazz reed kind of thing. I think that kind of mouthpiece is really appropriate for what we have in front of us. It flew on the power bell. I mean, the large bore, you get a lot of huge sound out of it. The bell keys in particular, because of the larger bell, these in particular, you get a really nice honking sound, which honestly, for that kind of instrument, is great for any kind of performing up of an ensemble, solo artist, anything like that. It's great.
You think that you'd be able to blend with the rest of the ensemble if you weren't playing soloistic work?
I
with
think
that mouthpiece, with that setup, or would you go to a different?
No, probably not, because that kind of setup, that's what it's for, right? I want to be like blasting.
It's
I want to
me,
be
baby.
the one.
It's all about me.
Man.
Right.
100%.
Yes, sir.
But if I was to switch to a classical mouthpiece or something like that, this kind of horn, while it has a huge bore and everything, there might be some disadvantages to having a specialized piece of equipment like this, right?
Absolutely.
So then we would move on to...
Right. That's where we get to on this bad boy, because an important thing to consider when you are selecting your mouthpiece. Mouthpiece, ligature, and reed, we call it the setup. What gear do you use for your setup? The characteristics of Antigua instruments are very free-blowing. Even the Barry sax, you said honkin'. Man, those 4000 series Barry saxes, designed again, everything on the Barry sax has the low A, so it goes all the way to low A, but there's a lot of those on the stage. Professionals are playing them because they really do project, and they're honking.
Oh, my brass band, my Barry player uses a 4248 with the black nickel.
Oh, that's a beautiful horn.
It's a great horn, man.
That's a great point, though, the different finishes. Saxophones, more and more and more, you go to a manufacturer who's showing saxophones, and you've got a gamut of colors of instruments, and what those are different finishes. Like you've got antique, you've got amber lacquer, you've got regular lacquer, we have a number of finishes that we put on the instruments.
So many.
Yeah. So you mentioned the black nickel.
Yeah.
That it amazes everybody when you line up those different finishes, the same instrument, the 4248, but in classic nickel and antique and the red brass covered with regular nickel plating. When the different platings that we have, they all sound different. Some people say that, man, that's great, but I like the look of that black one. And then they play the black one, and that nickel plate is thinner than a colored lacquer, because you have to add color pigments. And believe it or not, those pigments, that coloration, changes the sound. I always say everything is relevant. The amount of solder that we run into that little doohickey is relevant to the sound. Everything is relevant. And so you might like the look of one, and what you're doing is when you're searching, you're going for the sound. And then if you can be so lucky as to get the sound you want, and it's got a cool look, then that's a win-win. So we talked about the 4000 series. We talked about the dual arms on the lower stack, C, C sharp, and B. We also have a couple things that is unique to Antigua on the 4000 series. Again, we played a lot on the jazz stage. A lot of professional jazzers play our gear because it just blends, it lends itself to the jazz performers. And it can be that alto might sit on the stand for a while they're blowing the tenor or the soprano. The durability of putting that on the stand, and most of the time you grab it right around the middle to put it on the stand. We've put a support on the 4000 series right here where guys always grab it to put it on the stand. So small things like that we think about when we design these instruments make a big difference. If you are playing classical, you want a more covered sound, a more rich sound, a more blended sound, then what you're looking for is, and some people call it the Paris, the France, the French sound versus the American sound. American sound is categorized by, a little bit more edge, a little bit groovier. The French sound has nothing to do with personalities, no, but the French sound is considered a more classical sound, a more ensemble sound.
Yeah.
Right? And that was the comment you made about the 5200. This instrument is unique, and it's priced really nice for a pro horn. It's unique because it's got the features of our better design, our better instruments, but what it does is we've taken that taper of the pipe, the body of the instrument, and we've closed it down a little bit. We let this one get a fast taper only at the end, okay? So this one has got more resistance. It pushes back a little bit more, which some people, and especially in classical, like, because they can bend the tone, intonation is affected. They can, if it pushes back a little bit, you can do different things because of the control of the instrument. One thing I like to point out, do you use that mouthpiece for all your playing, or do you have, what other setup do you have?
No, if I were playing in like a classical setting, or if I was playing with my saxophone ensemble, right? Nice little quartet or something. I got a nice Optimum Van Doren mouthpiece, an AL3.
Nice.
I have a little refacing done on it to make it a little more open. Blue box reeds, man, can't do better.
So the facing and opening up the mouthpiece are all things to really personalize that mouthpiece.
Absolutely.
To make it. We all have a sound in our head.
Yeah.
We have a sound in our mind that we want to produce, that we want to share. The important thing that I like to talk about is when people are trying different brands. I've had a lot of people, they play their stock mouthpiece, just say that it came with your Antigua student horn, okay? And then they put that mouthpiece and they try to play, or rather they play then on this instrument with that stock mouthpiece, that same setup. It feels a lot different, doesn't it?
100%.
I mean, yeah, and what it does is what you're feeling there is you're feeling what we've done to the board, to the taper of the instrument. You want to know if your setup is free-blowing or stuffy. That's a generalization, but a free-blowing mouthpiece on instruments that are free-blowing, you fall in. I mean, it's just, whew, I mean, it just wears you out. It makes it a hard gig to hang out for that long. A little bit of back pressure, a little bit of standardization on your back pressure on a free-blowing horn makes a huge difference. You heard Andrew say that he had his scraped a little bit on his taper, so he wanted a little bit freer blowing, right? He wanted to open it up a little bit, so the air went up a little bit, through a little bit better. All of those things are great. When you pick your instrument and you are dialing in your sound, your reed, your ligature, everything is just very relevant to getting what sound you get out. This instrument, the 5200 series, I said that we kept this throat a little smaller, okay? So it's more covered. It's got more back pressure in it. This, you can drive a tank through it and honk, as Andrew said. This one, if you can honk if you want, but it's gonna be hard work. This one is more covered. This is a totally different characteristic of sound. And through the door, I could tell which instrument you were playing, because this instrument is what I would call a more traditional French sound. The couple neat things about it, it's got the construction benefits of some of the others, but the bell is unique. The bell is from the bow to the bell flare. This is a one-piece bell. That makes it unique. It's plasma welded at the seam when they put it together, so it's a one-piece bell. That one-piece bell makes a huge difference in the richness, the tonal quality of the instrument. And we heard when Andrew played, we heard it just a beautiful saxophone sound. That's really nice that the price point that this comes in and get a professional sound.
Absolutely.
Makes it a neat instrument that a lot of people are really excited about playing.
Well, it ends up being like when you're looking for a good professional model.
Yes, sir.
The prices just go up exponentially. I mean, it's a real problem. I mean, we carry some of the best brands we can get, but there are just some people out there that are looking for a really good saxophone, but it's just not going to work out from the spend $5,000-$7,000 or something like that, right?
Absolutely, and that's really where we live. We live in that, I don't want to pop, I'm not a professional player, I don't want to spend $17,000 on my whole setup. That would be a lot.
That would be a lot.
Now, some of the old French stuff, I've seen some.
We've seen like those Mark 6s that come with the speaker.
Yes,
Right?
I got stories, but I won't go there. So the everything that is put into these instruments affects not only the sound. I said that it's all relative, but it also affects the cost. These instruments are professional grade. The materials that we build instruments out of are the best that we can get. In fact, there are instruments in our line of Antigua that use from the same source as U.S. instruments. We source materials from all over the world. The mother of pearl buttons, believe it or not, the paints, the finishes that we get are the best quality that we can get. All of these things drive up the price. So we're very aware of the price point that we want to be in, because there are those instruments that because of name are I shouldn't say only because of name, but there are very expensive instruments out there in the saxophone world. That's not us. We try to be the working man, the saxophone. If we want to honk, we got horns in the line that'll do that. If we're going to play on the stage and we in a solo or rather a ensemble type situation, we've got instruments that are great at doing that also. The construction points that I pointed out, the ribbing, very important, the post to body, those types of things create more hand craftsmanship, so that increases the price. German blued springs. I mean, the type of materials, whether it be stainless steel springs or German blued steel strings, it's all relevant. So when you start looking at the price of instruments, the saxophone has got a lot of pieces parts, and so that affects the pricing.
Absolutely. And there's one after this one too. So like you got your specialized equipment right here. You got your great student model. This is great for any beginner to start on. If you're going to be going in the middle school, your new program, or even if you're an adult that's just wanting to get into the saxophone, this is also a great instrument to just start out on. I think this is one of the better student models out there that you can get, especially for the price.
Well, we guarantee it for 5 years. I mean, you can't mess it up. It's a tank. Yeah. Over the last 5-10 years, especially when COVID slapped all of us, we found more and more adults picking up, as a beginner, picking up an instrument. The adult playing beginners was a market that the whole music industry was like, wow, it's so neat to have an adult say, back in school I used to play the saxophone. I think I'll pick it up again. What do you have that's a reliable, quality type instrument that's not going to break the bank? And that's really where we live. That's where Antigua, our reputation is just that. We're workhorses. We have finishes that are solid, we have sounds that are solid, and we stand behind our gear. Another thing, when you're talking about importing a saxophone, something that's very important is buy a saxophone that is made at a plant that company owns. Antigua is one of the few instruments that we own all of our factory. We own the factory that builds this. So we have a pride in every piece of these, and therefore we support it with parts. Here in the United States, our parts bins, a lot of parts are located here in San Antonio. So they can go to somebody like this guy and get, anything they need. And as sales manager, I understand that when your axe isn't working, you're not a happy camper. So that's something that I take a lot of pride in, is we have parts. The repair guys that you take it to are confident that they can get parts for an Antigua instrument. We make a lot of different brands. We are a large company that makes for others as well as Antigua. We have a lot of parts that are interchangeable, and that makes it nice for shops. But there are brands out there that a lot of you, some of you may have got caught by it. I can buy a saxophone online for $200. It's an instrument-shaped object.
Instrument-shaped object.
It looks like a saxophone. And I drop it, or I bump it on something, and it bends and maybe even snaps off a key. And then I take it to my friendly music store, and I say, fix this. And they go, can't do it. Parts are not available. So unless Andrew has got a magic finger that can create a key that is just right, that instrument is rendered helpless. I mean, it's trash. It is unfortunately a consumable that you got it for $200. Yeah, and how many times are you going to do that for $200?
Absolutely, and we've definitely talked about those kind of instruments and everything too.
Good.
And that's where something like this, and where like certain price points and everything like that, I usually, when I talk about where you get the saxophone, how you know when to get one, usually, honestly, price point is usually a great signifier for a lot of what you should get, what you shouldn't get, but it's also where it's from, and understanding the history, the kind of the impact that these instruments have had and whatnot as well. I think that Antigua Winds in particular has a very storied history, especially with where it's from, how close it is. It has its own, it owns its own shop. I mean, you're skipping a step that a lot of other brands just like this have to go through.
Now you guys understand why we distribute through Alamo Music.
So yeah,
they are our distributor of pro
absolutely.
horns. Yeah.
And these are some of my favorite horns. I have a great history with them, and I wholeheartedly recommend them to everybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that vote of confidence, and keep us on our toes and make sure that we continue taking care of it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank
Well,
you.
hey, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. It does help in the long run, just to know when the next video is coming out. We are going to do some videos on each of these horns in particular as well, so check those out when you can. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
So long.